Welcome to the family, son.
Resident Evil 7 Biohazard unravels the next chapter in the survival horror game series developed and published by Capcom. The game centers around the protagonist Ethan Winters, who has set out to find his wife Mia, who took a job as a babysitter several years prior and has since went missing. Despite her final words warning Ethan to stay away, he tracked her to a plantation house in Dulvey, Louisiana. The plantation is the Baker family homestead, a family the locals thought had gone missing as well. In the early game, Ethan soon learns his wife and the Bakers are still very alive, but neither are the same as they once were. Survival and horror ensue. After the establishing cutscenes, you quickly find yourself in control of Ethan. The first notable change in Resident Evil is that the camera is now shot from the first-person perspective of the main character. This is a notable change because all the Resident Evil games up to now have been third-person. I enjoyed this fresh new aspect for the series, and Resident Evil 7 can be played in its entirety in VR. The first-person perspective adds to the immersion of the game. The camera style brings you closer to the action, whether being chased by Jack, the Baker family father, or getting up close and personal with the molded. I generally felt scared at times. I was worried after playing the early released free demo of the game that there would be a lack of usable weapons throughout the story, but it was quite the opposite. The Plantation provides you with many tools to choose from to defeat your pursuers, and the game grants you your first handgun within the first hour. The combat system worked well, rewarding headshots with extra damage. Different enemy types were weak to different weapon types. This also left you to choose your weapons more carefully before loading out to the next area. Movements with Ethan was smooth and realistic. Aiming down your sights would slow your overall movement speed, and the inability to backpedal very fast while facing enemies only left you with the option to utilize the quick turn control to gain distance when enemies get too close, at the cost of turning your back to them. The abandoned plantation is quite run down, and in certain areas overgrown. Inside the house, many rooms remain seemingly normal, while others depict the remnants of horrible acts of human cruelty and experimentation. The art style and graphic textures chosen for the game perfectly portray these ideas. The use of low light and dark shadowy situations really helped to set the horror mood, and the soundtrack was cued perfectly to jump scares and anxiety-building moments. Thumps and thuds can be heard throughout the progression that add to the already eerie ambience of the environment. If the game's story isn't enough to give it another play, keep in mind there are 2 verified endings now pending the one decision you make in the game. After completion of either easy or normal difficulty, you are rewarded with 2 items that show up in your item box on the next playthrough. There is also more rewards for completing the Madhouse difficulty, completing the game under a set number of hours, and completing the game finding and destroying all the Mr. Everywhere statues. Playing on Madhouse difficulty will also change the location of regular and key items, as well as many enemy encounter points and enemy types at those locations. For example, I found a 4-legged molded on the first floor of the main house early on during Madhouse difficulty. I thoroughly enjoyed playing this game. It reminded me so much of the early Resident Evil games. The game was less focused on action and more focused on survival horror. Cleverly placed, nostalgic puzzles and items reminded me of a time when I held the series closer to heart. The change to the first person I totally agree with, and the choice, if you noticed, to keep Ethan's face from appearing in the game really helped me to feel immersed in the story. The game initially had me pretty nervous and somewhat terrified for the better part of the first 3 hours, but after that I started to accept the scares and found comfort within my new surroundings. On my second playthrough, with the changes made to the environment on Madhouse difficulty, it honestly had me scared all over again, and I liked that. I'm a big fan of this franchise. I'm happy to see the series go back to its roots, and I hope this trend will continue into later chapters of the series.
Thanks guys for watching my review in its entirety. If you like this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more, subscribe to my channel and leave a comment below. Thanks guys. I'll see you around.
Have a nice day.